Hi, it's Rob Riggs with Code Conspirators, and I know what you're thinking. Rob is wearing a shirt with a collar. What is going on? This video must be important. And you're right. We just launched our 1,000th site. And that's if you're keeping score at home, that's a fairly significant accomplishment. And along the way toward launching 1,000 sites, we've learned lessons, what to do, what not to do, how to do things better that serve our clients better. And we wanted to put together these top 10 tips of things we've seen people do when they're launching their own site that they probably could have done better. So kind of short phrase, top 10 mistakes that people make when they're launching their website. And I'm going to roll through those top 10 list style. So ready for this? Here we go. Number 10, make sure content is ready to go. Most people, when they think of web content, they think of the words on the page, and that's true, but also think of image assets or videos or anything that's on the site that needs to be moved over. You're also going to want to make sure you know which pages are going to continue to live on the new site and which pages are going to go away. Next, look for lorem ipsum. So lorem ipsum is Greeking. It's kind of Latin language that web developers will use in place of actual content because we may not have actual content for a particular page yet. But we've seen developers sometimes, not our developers of course, but they'll launch a site and then they've got all this fake language, Greeking, because maybe the client never got them content for that particular page. You want to make sure that you can do a quick search in your content management system for lorem ipsum, L-O-R-E-M, second word I-P-S-U-M, and search for that, and the CMS will identify any pages that have that needs to be replaced with actual content, or take that page, disable that page so it is not going to show. Because you don't want it just looks bad. It looks like somebody forgot something, which they did. So next, data. So if you have users on your site with particular access, or you have product that's going to need to be migrated to the new site, so make sure you have a smooth process for moving this data over to the new database. Next, logo, favicon, and a featured image. So obviously, logo is your brand. The favicon is usually a piece of that. Favicon is what will show up in the browser tab, kind of on the left side, and that helps in a myriad of ways, but supports your brand. And then featured image is what will show up if someone shares a link to a particular page on your site. You can set up what image shows up in LinkedIn or Facebook or Insta that represents your brand well. So browsers and social channels will properly display your content. And the last piece under content is sitemap. So make sure that you have redirects from any pages you remove from the new site to a relevant destination. So somebody doesn't get an error page that says this page doesn't exist. It's much better user experience if you redirect to a page with relevant content. And then lastly, under content, generate an XML sitemap so search engines can quickly and easily understand your website content structure. That's going to better serve your website in the future. That's number 10. Stay tuned for number 9. All right, number 9, make sure you're ready for Google and the other search engines. So first, we look to improve page load speed. So in order to do this, you can optimize images for file size, get those as small as possible while still maintaining good look. Next, minify scripts and style sheets. You can compress those so there's not a lot of bloat in your code. And then lastly, make sure JavaScript loads at the bottom of the page rather than at the top, because if it loads at the top, then while the server is figuring out how to load the JavaScript in the page, your user is sitting there waiting for the page to load. A much better experience to your users if you put that JavaScript at the bottom in the code on the page. So there's also a setting that enables you to hide the site from Google, and usually we use this when a site is in development and we don't want Google to see things in process. But for launch, now you're going to want Google to find that. So make sure that you've disabled the hide the website or enabled the find the website or whatever your content management system employs. Make sure you have that so that Google will actually see your site when it launches. Next, ensure that key pages, really important pages, have appropriate metadata set so that you tell Google and the other search engines what content you say your site is about. Make sure your content supports that, and you're going to get better rankings for those search terms typically. And then lastly for Google, number 9, comply with Google priorities. So you're going to want to make sure you test for your mobile friendliness for your site. So check it on all kinds of different browsers and devices. And then make sure that your site is ADA friendly. Make sure your website content can be accessed by people who are differently abled, and Google is certainly prioritizing that these days. So another helpful tip. Number 8, have a plan for a DNS. So DNS stands for Domain Name Service, and that basically, that's what your URL, if you have a domain, it's going to point to your server IP address, and DNS is just a service that tells the server in the domain itself, rather than having somebody type in this bunch of numbers, just type in this URL and it's going to point to the site on the server. So there are at least 3 areas that you need to be focused on, but we generally focus on for DNS. Number 1, the website will point an A record to the server where the website lives. Next, subdomains. So subdomains are may be really integral to how you are marketing or how you are leveraging your main domain. And you want to make sure that those are pointed appropriately as well if there are any changes. You may want to look at A records for those as well, or CNAME records if there's anything that needs to change with your website migration. And then lastly, if you are making any changes to the server, where your website is hosted, you may need to make some updates to email. So if you are not changing where your email is hosted, then you will want to test some forms and make sure that the site is integrated with your email from the new server, to make sure that if somebody fills out a form, that they're getting an autoresponder, or your team is getting notified that somebody filled out a form. All right, number 7. Broken things. Make sure you look out for broken things. So broken things are defined as this. Internally, look for broken links between pages, between your website pages linking to each other. Make sure you click through your pages and follow links and make sure they are pointing properly. Oftentimes, if pages change or URLs change, then you'll have links within a page. You'll click that and then you'll go to an error page because that page no longer exists. So check for that. Externally, you want to check for links from other sites to your site. So if they're linking to specific pages within your site, you want to ensure that content is still available. There are free tools, Ahrefs or something similar, that will crawl your site and find broken links and other issues. Highly recommend doing that to make sure all your links and all your things are functional. Next, integrations. Test your conversion path, your forms, any third-party tools that you need operational in order to conduct business. So if you're using HubSpot or another like tracking of behavioral analytics that you want to function in the new site, make sure that you've tested that and everything is ready to go there. Number 6, and this is painful. Click through each page and test that the page loads properly. The reason this is so painful is because it's like literally, clicking and waiting for a page to load. But this is incredibly important because oftentimes there's a wonky URL or something that's broken that you don't know is broken until you click through and find that. So scroll through your site like a new user would scroll through your site. Now, if your site has like 3,000 pages, you probably don't have to click through all those. Quick way around that is to click the main links in your main navigation. So hit your main pages and look through the different page types, the different page layouts. So if you have a service page, click through a couple of your service pages. Your product page, look through a couple products. Your home page, your about, team, bio, things like that. Just click through different types of pages, different types of page layouts, and make sure that generally they're loading properly. Make sure you hit the blog and like the blog listing, the blog detail pages to make sure both of those are loading properly. And if those work fine, you can assume, but again, take the risk on yourself that those pages are working well. That's number 6. Number 5, back up the site before you launch. This is incredibly important just to have something to roll back to if for some reason something doesn't work the same or work the way you expect on the new site. So grab a backup, keep it handy while you're launching, and keep it handy for a month, 2 months, 3 months after launch, just to make sure you have something that you're not scrolling through blog posts and somebody wonders, hey, where was that thing we posted 3 months ago? You want to always have your content and your entire site available to back up. You can even put that on a like a development site or development server to always be available if you need to grab something real quick. That's fairly easy to do. So once you've gone through these first 6 steps, you're free to launch. So I know what you're thinking, Rob, you said there were going to be 10 tips, and there are. The first 6 that we reviewed happen before launch. Before you even press that button to migrate the site to this new server, so you've got to go through those first 6 steps. These last 4 happen after the migration. You've got to be able to test to make sure everything is working successfully. So the first of the final 4, in no particular order, but the way we would do things, first is security. So now that you're on the live URL, the live server, you're going to want to make sure that you have SSL installed. So security certificates are incredibly important. Now, not only for actual security, but also because Google and the other search engines now, or browsers even, are disabling sites that don't have proper security certificates installed. And so people that are looking for your site won't even be able to load your site when they do find that URL. So make sure you have that installed properly. Next, determine users that were necessary during launch but no longer necessary are removed. And that's just a security protocol to make sure that nobody has access any more than they need. Nothing against those people, but it's really easy to let users remain in having access to your stuff that really have no business having it. And then if there's an issue later on down the road, it's a lot harder when you have 100 people with admin access, full admin access to your stuff, than if you just take the steps that you need to be taken when they need to be taken. Number 3, analytics. Ensure that any and all metrics tools you were using before are properly tracking usage and engagement now on the new site. So the easiest is Google Analytics. That's an obvious one. But if you're using anything like SEMrush or other tool, Lead Forensics, or something that's capturing people that's coming to your site, identifying their behavior, and then remarketing, retargeting, make sure that you have tested that to make sure that it's tracking and engaging as you would expect. Number 2, caching. Caching is something that helps your website pages, your content, load quickly. So it basically, the caching engine will generate a static version of a dynamic page, so that when people land on that that dynamic page, they're going to get a static version. That it just helps load more quickly. So ensure that cache is enabled properly in the new environment so that those pages load quickly for your new site visitors. And then secondly, if you have a CDN or content distribution network, which is really important for especially images and video, ensure that is properly enabled and tested to make sure that your pages load quickly for your site's visitors. And number 1, drumroll please, finally, click through each page and test that the page loads properly. Now I know what you're thinking, didn't we cover this like 4 steps ago? Yeah, but you did in the old environment. Now the site is on a new environment. So we're going to want to click and test that each page is loading properly, in that they're linking properly to each other. And so our little trick here is, if we're, again, working with a site with thousands of pages, we're not going to click through each individual page for that. But we can click through each page type, and if you looked at particular service pages in step 5, let's say on the development server, you were going through this exact process, clicking through each page. On the live server, let's click through a different page in that same subsection. So if you're looking at one service page on the dev server, let's look at a different service page on the live server. And that way we're kind of doubling our effort. We're getting more pages tested with fewer clicks. So that's our top 10 list of how to avoid embarrassing mistakes with your website launch. These things are critical. We do these in each and every website launch ourselves, and we would be happy to help you if you have questions around how to get things tested and launched in a way that is going to avoid embarrassing mistakes. I'm Rob Riggs with Code Conspirators, and thanks for tuning in.